what? I don't get that. I really don't understand that. So they're having a pissing match yelling at each other. And I'm kind of like, okay. And I remember when Godzilla started powering up, I'm like, oh God, he's not going to do what I think he's going to do, because they're definitely implying that Kong is down there and he knows something's up and something's about to go wrong. And then when Godzilla breathes straight down, I'm like, oh my God, they're doing it. They're doing it. Oh my God. They're doing it. They're really going to do this. Wow. Yeah. By this point in the movie, I've completely been unimmersed into the movie itself, and I'm at a point where I cannot get back into suspending my disbelief, because so much of what has happened is ridiculous and unexplainable and just doesn't make any sense. And I haven't even gotten to some of the worst parts of this, which is the characters' motivations. Wait until I get to that. And then so it's like, okay, so Godzilla, I think there's something distracts him. Kong just casually climbs up this 15-mile hole, gets out, comes out the top, and just is like, hey, yeah, I'm here. How you doing? Yeah, I mean, calm as can be, like no biggie. And I'm just like, really? He just climbs right out of this 15-mile hole. Boy. So, okay, let me back up a little bit, because then there's some things that happen while Kong is kind of figuring out what's going on around him, and kind of looking at this throne room and looking at the axe. And at one point, you have the doctor who's in charge, who kind of the head researcher for Kong. I can't remember the names. I'm sorry. They're not really worth remembering. And then you have the daughter of the CEO. The daughter of the CEO is a horrible cliche of a character. Just dumb. Lazy writing, start to finish. But the CEO's daughter is there. And now you do see that there is some ulterior motives here, that the evil corporation wasn't being completely honest with the researcher, the head Kong researcher. And so she unleashes this robot to go up and dig a sample out of this glowing rock that is storing the energy, and then bring it back, and it's already starting to analyze it. And it's like, okay, great. But the head researcher for Kong, like, you can't just take a sample. That could be the scientific research, the scientific breakthrough of a century. And I'm just sitting there in my head thinking, why? Why can't she take a sample? As a matter of fact, you should be the one taking the sample. I mean, personally, I am not a scientist. But if I found that myself in that situation, and I would understand the importance of that material and that energy source and what it could mean for us, I'm going to just pick up a freaking rock and stick it in my pocket at the very least, and take it back to the surface with me. I wouldn't even expect to get paid or rewarded for it. I would do it just for the sake of what this means for the future of humanity and the potential it could open. And she's going to sit there and tell the woman who has done nothing to her other than just kind of be a jerk, that you can't just take that. I'm like, what? You should be doing the exact same thing she's doing. I mean, I understand your field of research is more Kong himself, but you're still a scientist. I expect you to appreciate the potential here. And it's not like it's hurting anything. I mean, she's literally just taking a rock sample. I can walk into my front yard right now and take a rock sample and not hurt anything. So it was a very strange response from that scientist to somebody who's effectively another scientist, even though they don't establish her as a scientist. She's more of just a cardboard cutout cliche. But she's ultimately, you find out, I mean, you know that by this point that the CEO's daughter is ultimately there to get a sample so she can analyze it, so she can send it back to her dad, so he can fully power up Mechagodzilla via Wi-Fi or something. Because now the little robot starts analyzing it right away and shipping data back, and I don't really have a problem with that. in and of itself, it's like, yeah, this is really important stuff, and it's good that they have this backup, or this, at least some of the information already going back to their headquarters. And so that whole exchange was weird. Things kind of go sideways. Daughter CEO ends up dying, and then, gloriously. I did enjoy that. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. She had it coming. And then the other things happen. Some people die. Then Kong climbs out. Excuse me. Then they also show a scene where the three nincompoop characters who are almost invaluable to the plot, or have no value to the plot, go and get caught by security when their little monorail thing gets there. I mean, they try to be, sneak in and stuff, but they get caught. And then they bring them straight to the CEO in the command center. Here's how that scene should have happened. Security guards bring in these three prisoners that they caught snooping around. CEO should turn around and go, what's going on? Well, we found them doing X, Y, and Z. Okay, why are they here? This is too important. Get them out of here. What if they screw this up somehow? And quite frankly, your security, you should be handling this. Why? I'm the CEO. I pay other people to do this for me so I don't have to be bothered by it. Take them, shoot them, and throw the bodies into the ocean so they'll never be found. Evil CEO. So utterly, utterly stupid movie trope. You bring potential threats of these characters who, as far as security knows, should have no connection to the CEO, and they really don't. And they should, and this is established as an evil corporation. Honestly, why didn't they just shoot them and throw their bodies into the ocean? There would have been no consequence for that, but there sure was consequence for allowing them access to the most important part of the entire facility. For no other reason than the CEO and the other character, one of the other characters, could have a morality argument. God. We're still doing stupid stuff like this in writing our movies? I mean, really, this one bugs me. I practically threw my arms up in the air in the middle of the theater. Go, really? Really? No reason this scene should have even taken place. Thousands of other ways you could have written this entire part of the movie that would have made way more sense. But no, we're going to do these tired old writing cliches, and you just have these morality exchanges between the villain and then the one character who's supposed to be the moral compass. So that was stupid. And then the information about that core sample gets back there. So somehow they're able to take the information, a power source signature, input that into a computer, and then immediately start generating that power source to fuel Mechagodzilla. I'm pretty sure it doesn't work that way. Just understanding how a power source works via email, like you're sending me the email information right now, and I'm going to look at it and go, great, I now can create unlimited powers of ultra power energy because I have this email that explains it to me. I'll feed it into this little computer over here, and I can now generate that power source. I can generate that type of energy to fuel Mechagodzilla. I am really, really confused by this. Now, I will accept that when I point things out like this, somebody who's really good with science and things like that might be able to go, well, okay, let me explain one possibility. And I will listen to that, probably eagerly, because I enjoy that sort of thing. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, here you have one example of how that could have happened. But did the writers really understand that? No. They just threw garbage in there to allow the plot to progress in a really unrealistic way. That's really what happened. and it didn't make any sense. And yes, if you're going to have science in your movie, I expect it to at least be based in some semblance of explainability. At least explain it a little bit. And that's why I say the whole Godira's skull talking to the other Godira's skull. At least it was it was strange and obviously unrealistic because telepathy isn't a real thing. But at least it was an established thing that they kind of explained, and it's like, oh, okay, I can suspend my disbelief long enough to continue to enjoy the movie. With this whole power source code thing, wow, again, just completely knocked out of the movie and rolling my eyes because it just made no sense. And then, so there was that, and then, so Mechagodzilla finally fires up, and they're ready to unleash him, and for some reason, Mechagodzilla goes nuts. They never explain why. The one of the chief scientists kind of explains that the power source could be unstable and they're taking a huge risk with this. And the CEO says it's a risk worth taking and we have to at this point. And it's like, okay, well, the whole mad scientist not listening to reason trope. Here we go. But they never really explain, why does Mechagodzilla go nuts? And he just starts, was it because he was just reverting to some sort of basic programming? And if that was the case, why did he turn around and kill the CEO? He deliberately targeted the CEO. That wasn't just I'm this super huge monster, so I slammed my arm against the wall and accidentally squashed some people. No, he targeted the CEO. And then he goes out to fight Godzilla. But I'm just like, why would he even bother fighting Godzilla? Does he care? Or is this some aspect of Godera's personality kind of resurfacing because there's still some, they established that his skull is kind of being used as like a biological computer. Is it Godera's very, very basic, simplistic kind of personality, taking over Mechagodzilla? Again, would have been nice to kind of explain because he just starts doing things for no reason. So, but then he does go outside and starts fighting Godzilla, and Mechagodzilla was kind of cool. And then, so Mechagodzilla is kicking the shit out of Godzilla, which I knew was going to happen. Kong is half dead at this point because Godzilla kicked the crap out. He basically won. And I'll go. I'll explain how I feel about that at some point. But so Godzilla's getting his butt kicked. He just can't keep up against Mechagodzilla. And then some of the characters go, okay, well, is there anything we can do to get Kong back in this fight? Because they're hoping that Kong will go help Godzilla take out Mechagodzilla because they're worried that Mechagodzilla is going to be dangerous for some reason. Although they haven't explained why they should be afraid of Mechagodzilla. They're like, what is that? I don't know, but he's kicking the crap out of Godzilla, so we should be cheering him on. That's what I would be doing. So for some reason, it's assumed that Mechagodzilla is the bad guy at this point. Now, I will admit, a little bit of this scene I missed because I had to go out to complain to management about a bunch of kids disrupting the movie, basically ignoring that there was anybody else in the theater and carrying on like it was recess. So maybe I missed something in there. But then I come right back in as they're landing that heave aircraft on Godzilla's chest, and I'm like, oh, okay, what? Obviously I missed some sort of exchange explaining why that's happening. But it turns out my brother had seen the movie earlier that day and I didn't even realize it. So I'm like, hey, James, fill this in for me. And he goes, I'm like, were they landing on that to act like a defibrillator and get him back up and running again? And he goes, yeah, pretty much. All right, that's stupid. But all right. So they power up King Kong again somehow, and King Kong jumps up and ends up, obviously ends up saving Godzilla, and they work together to take out Mechagodzilla, which I knew exactly how that was going to happen. I called that before I even sat to Godzilla, King Kong are going to team up against Mechagodzilla. That's how this movie's going to end. Now, I did have a prediction about the Godzilla versus Kong aspect of it, which I was wrong on. But I'll get to that in a second. So they finally defeat. They do work together to defeat Mechagodzilla, and so they then there's a then you're kind of like, once they defeat Mechagodzilla, what you're kind of like, what's going to happen is Godzilla and Kong, are they going to go at it again? Shoot. But then actually one of the scenes I liked in the movie happened. I thought it was a good scene, but I'll get to the good stuff later. And then I know I'm probably going to garner some strange looks for saying this. But in my honest opinion, the CEO of the evil Apex Corporation was really in the right all along. He was a good guy. He may not have been a good guy, and he definitely went about it the wrong way. But his end goal was correct. And I fully stand by that statement. And I'm going to explain why. At this point, knowing that the Titans are out there and pushing it however many years, at least five, probably at least five, we'll say, since Godzilla first reappeared and we knew about Titans, if you were going to tell me that there was no government on this planet working on anti-Titan technology, number one, I wouldn't believe you. Number two, I would be utterly disgusted to find out my government was not. Because you should be able, you need to work towards protecting human life. Humans should be doing that. And this, the little girl's main character, Millie Bobby Brown's character, the whole movie is like, oh no, we're in the wrong for provoking Godzilla somehow. That might be, now in the early part of the movie, okay, there might be some truth to this. And I accept that she may have a valid point that maybe we did do something that we should kind of back away from and go, oh, okay, we know why he's mad now. I did not expect it to be such a simplistically stupid answer, though, in that we were simply building Mechagodzilla to replace him, which we should have been doing all along. But it was only one corporation that really got to the point where they had achieved any success for it. Is disappointing. Quite frankly, the governments of the world should have been coming to Apex going, we will fund you. Give us stuff to fight the Titans. Hopefully we never have to use them. But by God, we're going to have them. And I'm not a hawk, okay? I'm not a hawk at all. I consider myself a far more of a dove when it comes to warfare. And on an existential level, war scares me. It really does. But that doesn't mean I'm not afraid to fight. And that doesn't mean that I don't feel I have a responsibility to not live under the constant threat of eradication by a creature we have no idea how he even thinks. You're darn right we should be working on weapons in case we need to use them. You're darn right. I stand by that. And I'll even draw an analogy that I'm going to show is different, because you have this same argument made in Batman versus Superman when Lex Luthor wants to build the kryptonite bullet to kill Superman. And the senator says, a weapon of assassination is still a weapon of assassination. Call it a weapon of deterrent all you want, it's still a weapon of assassination. And her point is absolutely valid. Now, the big difference because in both cases, Godzilla could wipe out humanity on a whim. Superman could wipe out humanity on a whim. We cannot stop them. We can't. There's a big difference, though. Superman has human morals. We can talk to him. We can reason with him. We can sit down and have a coffee with him, and kind of go, well, I mean, look, I know you're, let's come to some common understanding here, so you don't wipe us out. We can reason with him. Can you reason with Godzilla? No. So yeah, there is while I can already see somebody making that similar argument, there's a big enough difference there that I think makes it a completely different scenario. Godzilla is basically an animal. We cannot reason. We cannot communicate with him. He is driven only by his own desires, primal as they are, and we get lucky that he took out the Titans and stopped them from destroying the rest of humanity. He didn't care about us. He really didn't. And there should have been plenty of people to realize that. I mean, yeah, we heralded him as a hero because he destroyed the other Titans and, stopped them from obliterating us. And he's okay leaving us around. He doesn't really see us as much of a threat. And that's okay. And we reached some sort of equilibrium with him afterwards. But you're darn right we needed to have some weapons to use against him, and we should have been developing him, whether or not we were going to be successful or not. So the CEO was correct. We cannot continue to live on the. It's almost like saying, don't actually fight against the people who just invaded your country and took it over. Just don't. You might aggravate them, and they might be even worse. It's like, what? So we should have just been okay with Nazis storming across Europe, and everybody in Europe should have been okay with that, because you don't want things to get worse. And really, there really isn't much difference in that sense. The Nazis were inhuman monsters who had this agenda that was almost you couldn't reason with. Godzilla is an inhuman monster that you cannot reason with. They're both threats to your existence that need to be dealt with. So I really, really, really felt offended by I was actually offended. Yeah, I mean, that is the right word. I'm not going to tone that down any, by the stupid morals of this immorality of this movie. Because till the very end, she's like, no, you pissed him off because you're building Mechagodzilla. It's like, that is not a good enough reason to not build Mechagodzilla, because you might piss him off. Now, the Mechagodzilla program clearly did not end well. Sure, I'll accept that. And the CEO obviously went about this the wrong way. This should have been handled better on his part. He was a bit nuts. So yeah, but he was still right. We should have weapons to defend against Godzilla or deal with him should the need arise. So yeah, I went off on a real tangent there. But honestly, that part of the movie, I still just really rubs me the wrong way. And then they end with putting Kong down. Kong moves down to the Hollow Earth rather than living on Skull Island, because he'd outgrown Skull Island. And by the end of the movie, I said to myself, so that's why we went through all this Hollow Earth stuff, was just to establish that Kong could go down there and live in peace? Because it contributes almost nothing else to the rest of the plot. You could have written out all references to Hollow Earth and then just shored up some of the gaps that left, and the movie still would have made complete sense. So I still do not understand why Hollow Earth was even included in this movie at all. And if they say, well, we're going to establish a monsterverse, and that's where a lot of the monsters were going to come, I'm like, that's stupid. And you probably should have at least hinted at that path before the end of this movie, because it would have made sense. And I know they're trying to build a monsterverse, but I still don't see how or why this movie even feeds into that. It doesn't make any. It still doesn't make any sense. Now, I do want to kind of mention. I mentioned some stuff about the characters. The little girl who was deaf and communicated with Kong, at least on an emotional level, she was one of the best actors in the movie. I hate to say that. Fine, there was no problems with that role. And then the way that role was written was fine too. Her guardian, also fine. It wasn't a terribly written role, although some of the dialogue between her and the other characters is just god awful. The scientist guy was pointless, and again, in part because to me the whole Hollow Earth thing is pointless. Why have this character at all when you don't even need the Hollow Earth thing? It all just made no sense. CEO's daughter was a complete waste of space. They did not need her in this movie at all. She wasn't even well acted, in my opinion. Good luck to the actress, in the future endeavors. The evil CEO, I think, was a good actor in a shit role. And they I do like that they presented the CEO as being. They didn't present him immediately as an evil CEO, and they went out of their way to make sure he didn't seem like an evil, crazy CEO. And especially with some of his exchange with the Hollow Earth scientist, and so it was, and he was actually very sympathetic. I mean, obviously I think he was sympathetic throughout the whole movie, even though you clearly established he was a bit bonkers and a bit of a megalomaniac. But yeah, the helpful friend. Yeah, like I said, I liked the actor, but the role was crap. And I think he tried to do the best with it he could. And the girl actress who was the moral compass of the movie, and that's all she was there for. Basically, all she did was introduce her best friend to the conspiracy guy, because those two characters had way more important roles in the movie than she did. The only thing she was there for was introduce these two characters so they could put them in that command station so they could short out that computer. Oh, I didn't even mention that. The shorting out a computer trope so it causes Mechagodzilla some sort of, because he's still uplinked to the satellite. Really? How does that work? Ugh. So in some ways, those characters were way more effective at getting things done. And then her character was there just to have that, constantly yell at people. No, we provoked Godzilla. It's our fault. We should accept to live under his heel for the next 15 million years or however long humanity. He is our, he owns this planet, and we should never challenge him because he might lash out at us. Wow. So yeah, that kind of a pointless character, and I feel the actress is a good actress, but man, this was a horribly written role, and I'm sure they were contractually obligated to have her in this movie because she was in the last one. They probably wanted that, but as far as the character's contribution to the overall story and plot, it was pointless. So yeah, it was a terrible movie. Very disappointing. But there are some bright spots. They do not justify going to see the movie. I'll say that. But there were some bright spots. The movie centers around Kong. And I'm perfectly okay with that. I thought it would be a little more equal, but really this movie, Kong is really the central character of the movie. He is the main character of the movie, which was actually kind of nice. It was cool. And he grows more than any other character in the movie. And that was something I did not expect. And I was happy to see that. And the moment I really realized, oh wow, they're going in a direction I did not foresee with Kong as a character, was when the little girl goes out to the deck in the storm and kind of is on an instinctual level communicating with Kong, and then he uses sign language to talk to her. And then everybody else is just stunned into silence. That was a great scene. I mean, I watched that scene and all of a sudden my hopes for the rest of this movie soared. I'm like, that is such an impactful scene. And I really like that they didn't tell you what was happening. They showed you what was happening. They let you experience what was happening. None of the characters really needed to say anything. and you get the opportunity to let the implications of what was happening sink in, just like it was to them, and what this meant, and how it fundamentally changed their understanding of Kong. And as the viewer, it kind of fundamental. Now, I didn't see Kong Island, Skull Island, so maybe they established he was much smarter in that movie than I was aware of. But the fact that everybody else is super stunned by this, I don't think that was the case. And it was and the one person who did say something, it was did the monkey just talk? It actually wasn't that terrible of a line, even though it was unnecessary, because everybody was honestly stunned, and you were stunned because I didn't see that coming. And when he uses sign language to sign home, you know, it was a great scene. Unfortunately,